This is Musique, the Atari 8-bit podcast.
These machines aren't just for accounting and computation and mathematics. We can do creative things, and let's see what we can do with these machines to actually inspire the least thing you would expect from a deterministic machine like this. Now, how could it inspire a human being to create?
This is an interview episode of Antic, the Atari 8-bit podcast. I'm Kevin Savitz. Wes Horlacher published one program in Atari Program Exchange, Magic Melody Box. Magic Melody Box first appeared in the winter 1982-1983 APX catalog, where it was awarded second prize in the education category. It was also published by Atari France. I will read its entry from the APX catalog. The Magic Melody Box by Wes Horlacher. Recommended for ages 3 and up, written in BASIC. Draw a melody line and hear it play. The Magic Melody Box is a fast, easy, and fun way to introduce young and old to music composition. Creating a 4-voice, harmonized song involves only 2 simple steps. You use a joystick controller first to select one of 12 rhythm patterns, and then to draw a melody line in the Magic Box. As you draw, the notes play, and you can back up and redraw your melody at any time. Here's your chance to test whether crazy patterns create inspired compositions. Then the program uses your melody line and rhythm selection to compose about a minute of harmonized music in a popular song format. When the song ends, you can play it again or compose a new song. This music program is different. It doesn't use traditional musical notations, such as measures, notes, and clefs. Instead, it relies on simpler, abstract concepts like graphics, balance, and themes, used by many professional composers and arrangers. The program doesn't teach how to read or play music. Rather, it teaches how to create music. You'll delight in how good your creations sound and in how quickly and easily your melody composition skills develop with the Magic Melody Box. The author invites questions and comments by mail and telephone. Review comments. Don't confuse this program with any other music program on the market. Involve mathematics, establish intriguing algorithms for creating the accompanying harmony and for extending a bridge-like transformation in the middle. The result is a complete song. The user manual is very good. Requires Atari Basic Language Cartridge, 1 Atari joystick controller. Order information. It was available on cassette, which required 16K of RAM, or diskette, which required 24K of RAM. Either way, it cost $15.95. It was APX catalog number 20182. This interview took place February 15th, 2016.
I guess it all started way back. My dad and one of his old high school buddies came across found that there was available an actual book, text, of a music theory that my dad studied when he was in college, called the Schillinger method. And it was basically this Russian immigrant who saw in art a whole lot of mathematics. And we know that music is kind of a mathematical art, but he really developed it. And back in the 30s and stuff, guys like George Gershwin and people like that studied a little bit into this guy. And so somebody collected his notes, and so here we have this mathematical music, composition method that was in some books. And so my dad and his friend went to the bother to actually purchase the 2-volume set of those books. What was I, 12, 13 years old or something? I had shown an interest in music and in some mathematical aptitude. And so from a young age, I kind of saw the music as kind of a computing process. And so it goes way back to I was in high school and we were learning about computers up at the university, and they had this class in the summer on this UNIVAC 1108 computer. So we're using card decks to program things, learning how that worked. And one of the projects that we got to work on was this fellow that was doing his doctor's dissertation, his doctorate on computerizing a console organ. And so I got involved in that. I don't think we used the card decks to program. I think we had a teletype to enter the codes for programming that one. If I remember right, I don't know. And so it goes back that far that I kind of saw these computing machines as something more than just IBM accounting. And then, I don't know if you remember the old Altair hobby kit computers.
Sure, yeah.
My younger brother was in high school, and in his high school electronics class, the teacher had a fascination with that, and so he had one. He brought it home, and I saw that and thought, well, now let's see. We've got these 16 switches on the front of this console, and somehow I stumbled across there was this routine that somebody had written for that. But if you set a radio next to the circuitry and ran this program and tuned the radio to just some non-station, then this program would spin the circuitry, making it kind of into an oscillator that would transmit over to the radio where you could set the pitch. So you could actually do musical stuff on this radio sitting next to this just switches and LEDs is the only interface there. And so you could actually do music that way. And so I got a hold of that and ran that routine, and then also did some little compositional algorithms in there along the lines of the Schillinger method I'd learned. And so that was pretty fascinating to be able to do that at that point. So by the time the Atari came along, this was like light years ahead of all that. I could just go in to put my basic cartridge in there and use basic commands and write a program, and we could see what happened. And with the Atari Program Exchange, there was actually an audience. I didn't have to go invite people over to look at my brother's little switch computer. People could actually, buy this and pick it up at the store and go home and try it. And so I went ahead and decided, well, what of all of these things would work in a sort of a social experiment to see if people could get the idea of these computers actually affecting some kind of a creative process. And so I came up with the elements that you can now see if you do all the retro stuff to actually run that program. Now, I haven't run it for a long time, so I don't know what options are available these days.
I ran it last night in my emulator. Played with it.
Yeah.
It's kind of fun.
So it was just kind of a social experiment, although it was very highly driven by, at that time, I had some young children at home and family growing up, and, how do we spark the creative, just natural instincts of these children growing up. And so I kind of had a family passion in it. I was doing this for my children. And they were still pretty young, and I checked in with them here this last week, anticipating our call. And they were all pretty young. They didn't really remember it. My oldest did say that she did recall playing with it some, but younger than that, they didn't really remember. Although the ones that have had a musical interest have taken occasion to look back on it and see, oh, that was really interesting, and so they understood that stuff. So that's kind of how we got to that point, and the social experiment continues. I stayed involved with music things, kind of watched the whole MIDI interface standard come into place, and so forth and so on. But at this point, just doing general systems analysis work and such. So, I don't know, does that answer your question?
Yeah, I think so. So did the program sell well at all?
I did monitor that because I did do it as kind of a social experiment, saying, well, how is this in placing on the APX charts? And I guess really when I talked with Paul Cubbage and those guys over at Apex, it was Apex, and it was interesting to watch. I mean, I got a little, I think, second, third place in this Atari Star thing, and so that shows up on my resume to this day. But in selling, yeah, by the time I really caught on to doing that with the Atari Program Exchange, I think it was into its last couple of years. So it was interesting to watch it place, I think, one week within the top 10 of programs, but it didn't stay there or anything. Or one quarter, or however often they charted their sales. I don't remember any royalty checks, but there might have been one for, I don't know, a few dollars here and there. I don't know.
And for what it's worth, in June 1983, it was the 9th most popular program in the learning category. But for all I know, that meant it was selling, 2 copies a quarter. I don't know. They don't say how many.
Yeah. So, people were aware of it. I do remember, it just now occurs to me that I don't remember how it happened, but somebody from Children's Television Workshop made contact and wondered about something about it. I forget what it was now, but I remember some contact there. And since it was a children's educational program and it seemed interesting, and I think that what happened is I sent an evaluation copy to them. I guess they wanted to get it from me rather than, or maybe Apex said that they sent one. I don't know what happened there exactly, but there was some interest in that area also. But it that never made it on the air or anything. I guess they probably wondered, like, for example, my wife at the time mentioned that, the colors in this are really kind of depressing, things like that. So it didn't look really great. At least there were people who would downgrade it a little bit because of certain aesthetic choices in the visual area. So, I do remember that I came across years later a review that Scott Card wrote, and along with a bunch of other like electronic arts programs, Mule, things like that. But he included the Magic Melody Box in his reviews in that particular article. And he also, a family man, he found it that his children had an interest, enjoyed it, and he enjoyed it as well. So that was interesting to come across that.
I found that last night. Yeah, the article about your program by Orson Scott Card.
Yeah, I guess before he figured that really science fiction was where he was going to find his niche, he was doing a lot of those kind of reviews then, I recall.
Yeah.
He was into technology. And, so,
And you also wrote I found one article by you in Softside magazine um, about Magic Melody Box and music.
yeah, yeah. I participated in a collaboration on that. Part of the whole social experiment thing. I think the title was let's see, something about computers and how computers cultivating creativity, how computers can help to just kind of drive home the point. Look, these machines aren't just for accounting and computation and mathematics. We can do creative things, and let's see what we can do with these machines to actually inspire the least thing you would expect from a deterministic machine like this. Now, how could it inspire a human being to create? So it's view it kind of as a discovery mechanism. How can you set this up so that it inspires discovering rather than closing in on some definite answer or something? How can we open up and discover new questions? And so music provides a great opportunity. I mean, I forget exactly how we approached that in that article. I'd have to read it again. But yeah, so that was going on as well.
As far as I know, you only did the one program for APX, and you only published the one article. I suppose you were busy with family and other things, but is there any particular reason you didn't publish more things on the Atari side?
Well, one reason was that it seemed that Apex seemed to be sort of fading away. I didn't see any real monetary remuneration coming in from it. It didn't seem to really be, not that it was failing the social experiment, it was just indicating that, even something as simple and obvious and straightforward as this, because of, apex waning or, the color's not looking good or just for whatever reason, it just wasn't catching on. Just kind of went to, well, what next? And what I did start doing is the next really, in fact, I would say the only other really convenient platform to do that sort of thing on that came up next was the Atari 2 GS, if you remember that one, the graphics sound system.
The Apple II GS?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That they did. Now that involved, of course, writing it in C and getting a compiler and becoming an Apple developer. And so I did all that stuff. I was actually working on porting the whole thing and upgrading it and all of that and improving the visual aesthetics over onto the Apple II GS. And so doing this in the background of everything else going on in life, but it did take, I did put a fair amount of time and effort into that. And then, we moved around and things that happened, and that computer got set into a storage unit for a while while we got things settled. And then somebody stole the computer out of the storage with all the software diskettes and everything. And and am I going to re-enter this from a hard copy and all that stuff and get a new computer, and it just kind of fizzled on that effort. But then of course by then, I guess the reason I didn't redouble the efforts to make up that loss was that sales of the Apple II GS weren't going all that well, and it just didn't seem like a fruitful platform after all. So technically, it was wonderful. It just wasn't getting the placement that would make it suitable for the next level of the social experiment. I know, well, how well can people catch on to this? And I kept an eye on what other, who else has been doing compositional algorithms like this to actually help people create. I mean, you've got your, I forget the name of the music software program, Rhapsody or something like that, that does the actual printing of the music and so forth. So, there's a whole music software, and in my mind it was all, I was thinking music software before we were thinking music software. But that turned into just a production tool rather than an actual creative support system. You would compose your music, and then you would decide, well, okay, now let's print it. So good thing that as I was composing it, I had my, MIDI keyboard going and was using my synthesizer and all that, so that now I can just run that through and print it. So that's what music software has become. It's just...
Yeah, I was thinking, you and I had emailed in the year 2000 when I was looking for permission to put APX programs online, and I found this old email from you from 16 years ago, and you had said at the time, perhaps I could do a piece about the rise and fall of creative technologies like these to explain why a current version of this kind of program is unavailable. I can imagine the site being an important commentary on the wrong direction the world is heading under the spell of too much Microsoft-like mentality, without even blaming anyone in particular, just showing folks the differences between the seasons of innovations we've seen over this short span of history, so we can clarify what kind of future we'd prefer and move in that direction. And so I was thinking about that. You wrote that a long time ago, and I think that's completely untrue today with apps and with little phone apps. There are so many creative music apps. I mean, you could load down your phone with weird little things to drag your finger on the screen, and it makes music, and it makes little pretty pictures, and it can control your MIDI device, and just creative music tools. So I feel like the pendulum has swung back again towards Magic Melody Box type things.
Well, yeah, it has, but only under the gaze of Big Brother. So, sure, go for it. I mean, like I just noticed on my Yahoo homepage that yet another breach of the IRS data has occurred. So everyone who has been e-filing their taxes now has to watch out for some identity thief thing going on.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know. I guess if I'm drawing a pretty melody line on my phone app, I guess no one will care about that unless I actually come up with something really earth-shattering when I draw that melody line. So I don't know. I still see fundamental philosophical issues to resolve along the lines of what you just read in that email that I frankly don't recall, but it sure sounds like my writing. I'm an idealist. In a very deep place. So I guess that's my problem.
Fair enough. Great. What do you do today?
Oh, now it's all exciting with the grandchildren and trading stories for them so that they can, have a different outlook on options on how they can view the world. It's still pretty family oriented. On a professional level, I guess I could retire any time, but I don't know. I enjoy just doing the video systems analysis work and helping people bridge the gap between what they think the system ought to do and what it's really doing now. I guess in some way just keeping a finger on the pulse of how willing are people to break the spell of the automaton mentality and actually break out into creating their own stuff. So how's that for a vague answer?
I like it. Well, thank you so much, Wes. I appreciate your time today.
Okay, yeah, good luck with this. Appreciate the opportunity. Hopefully it helps us all progress and discover our deepest creative instincts.
If you enjoy these interviews and would like to contribute something, I encourage you instead to donate to one of our favorite organizations, the Internet Archive, at archive.org. The Internet Archive is a nonprofit digital library with the stated mission of universal access to all knowledge. They've done incredible things to preserve computer history, including hosting thousands of programs in an in-browser Atari emulator, creating the Wayback Machine, and offering full-page scans of countless Atari computer books and magazines. Make your tax-deductible contribution at archive.org/donate.